let's talk about something that's going to make you raise your eyebrows, shake your head, and maybe yell at your screen. Because this story is about how our legal system handles one of the most emotionally charged crimes out there, sexual assault. And to understand it, we're diving into a case that shocked and infuriated people all across the United States. The case of a Brigham Young University athlete, his controversial plea deal, and the uncomfortable question of whether justice was really served. It's a case that made headlines in the Washington Post, lit up comment sections, and sparked a nationwide debate about how we punish sexual misconduct, and whether the punishment ever actually fits the crime. So, here's the setup. Imagine being a student at a prestigious private university in Utah, a school known for its academic rigor, its squeaky clean honor code, and of course, its powerhouse athletic programs. Brigham Young University, or BYU, is not just any school. It's run by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, which means it has strict moral rules about everything from curfews to caffeine. And into this setting walks a young, promising athlete, someone with star potential and a bright future. Until, one night, everything changes. Multiple women come forward and accuse him of sexual assault. Not just misconduct, not harassment, but actual assault. These allegations lead to criminal charges, serious ones, carrying the possibility of years behind bars, a felony record, and a life completely derailed. Now, here's where the story gets infuriating, and also fascinating, because instead of the dramatic courtroom showdown you might expect, this case ends not with a bang, but with a plea deal. If you're not familiar, a plea deal is basically the legal system's version of, let's make a deal. The defendant agrees to plead guilty to a lesser charge, and in return, the prosecutors agree to drop the more serious charges or recommend a lighter sentence. On paper, plea deals make sense. They save time, save money, and spare victims the trauma of testifying in court. In practice, though, they can sometimes feel like a giant get-out-of-jail-free card. And that's exactly how people saw this one. Because in this case, despite the gravity of the accusations, the athlete's plea deal resulted in what many described as a slap on the wrist. A misdemeanor charge, no prison time, and just probation. That's it. No orange jumpsuit, no prison bars, just probation, and a record that would barely hint at what actually happened. When the Washington Post covered the story, they highlighted how the leniency of the plea shocked the public. Victims' advocates called it a betrayal. Students at Brigham Young University felt angry and unsafe. Social media exploded with people asking how someone accused of such serious crimes could walk away so easily. And this wasn't just outrage for the sake of outrage. People were connecting the dots, realizing that when punishments are this light, it sends a message. A message that says sexual assault isn't really taken seriously, at least not when the accused is young, talented, and athletically gifted. It made people wonder, are plea deals about justice, or are they about convenience, about protecting victims, or about protecting reputations? This is where the philosophy part comes in. And yeah, I know, the word philosophy sounds like something your freshman year roommate rambled about at 3 a.m. while eating cold pizza, but stick with me. Because behind every court decision, every plea bargain, there's an unspoken philosophical question. What is the actual purpose of punishment? Is it to make the offender suffer? To balance the moral scales? That's called retribution. Is it to stop them from hurting anyone again? That's incapacitation. Is it to scare them, and everyone else, into never doing it again? That's deterrence. Or is it to change them, to help them become a better person? That's rehabilitation. The ideal criminal justice system balances all of these, but when it comes to sexual assault, many people feel like we're failing on every front. The light sentence in this BYU case didn't feel like retribution. It didn't deter anyone, it didn't protect anyone, and as for rehabilitation, well, who's to say there was even an attempt? Part of the problem is that plea deals have become the backbone of the American justice system. Roughly 95% of criminal cases in the United States end in plea bargains, not trials. And in theory, they're supposed to help victims avoid reliving their trauma on the stand. But critics point out that they often silence victims instead, leaving them with no sense of closure. In this BYU case, the victims publicly said they felt blindsided by how lenient the deal was, as if their suffering had been reduced to a bargaining chip. It's like the system was more concerned about clearing its schedule than about actually doing justice. And the ripple effects go beyond the courtroom. When the public sees someone accused of sexual assault walk away with barely a scratch, it chips away at trust in the entire system. If survivors don't believe they'll be taken seriously, they're less likely to report in the first place. If the community believes athletes and the privileged get special treatment, it creates cynicism, the sense that justice isn't blind, it's just looking the other way when it's convenient. That cynicism is poison. It erodes faith in the law, in the courts, even in the idea of fairness itself. And when people lose faith in the system, they stop cooperating with it. They stop reporting crimes, stop showing up for jury duty, stop believing that justice is even possible. That's the real danger of cases like this. Not just the injustice done to one set of victims, but the long-term damage done to everyone's belief that the system works. Now, defenders of plea deals will argue that they're a necessary evil. Without them, the courts would grind to a halt under the weight of thousands of trials. And they'll say that in cases like this, maybe the evidence wasn't airtight. Maybe prosecutors feared they'd lose at trial. Maybe they figured some punishment was better than none. And yes, those are valid points. Trials are risky, especially in sexual assault cases where it often comes down to one person's word against another's. But that raises an even deeper question. If our system can't convict sexual offenders unless the evidence is absolutely perfect, are we really serving justice? Or are we just protecting the illusion of justice while quietly cutting deals behind closed doors? What makes this BYU case stand out is how perfectly it exposed this tension. It showed how the legal system's obsession with efficiency can collide head-on with society's demand for accountability. It showed how power and privilege, being a star athlete at a wealthy university, can tilt the scales. And it showed how plea deals, while useful, can also make the public feel like justice is negotiable, like it's just another item on a menu. The outrage wasn't just about one athlete walking free. It was about what that freedom symbolized. It symbolized the fear that the system cares more about protecting the future of the accused than the trauma of the survivors. In the aftermath, people demanded reforms. Some called for stricter sentencing guidelines in sexual assault cases, so prosecutors can't quietly downgrade them to misdemeanors. Others said victims should have more input in plea negotiations, so their voices don't get drowned out by legal strategy. And some went even further, questioning whether universities like Brigham Young University should have their own internal disciplinary systems at all, given how often they seem to shield athletes and protect the school's image. These are big, messy questions with no easy answers. But if there's one thing this case made clear, it's that ignoring them isn't an option. At the end of the day, this whole saga is like holding up a mirror to the justice system and asking, what are we actually trying to do here? Are we trying to uphold justice, or just keep the machinery running smoothly? Are we protecting victims, or protecting reputations? And when we say no one is above the law, do we actually mean it? Or do we mean no one is above the law unless they can dunk a basketball or win us a championship? Because if the answer to that is the latter, then maybe the system isn't broken, it's just working exactly as designed. And that might be the scariest thought of all. So, the next time you hear about a plea deal that sounds too good to be true, remember this case. Remember how it made people furious, how it sparked protests and editorials and late-night arguments. And remember that behind all the legal jargon and courtroom drama, what's really at stake is something much bigger than one verdict. It's our collective belief that justice matters, that it's real, that it applies to everyone. And if we lose that, then no amount of courtroom efficiency is going to save us.